Welcome. I'm Kevin Miller. This is a podcast for your personal evolution. In this episode, running, cancer, death, and the value of suffering. We're going to talk about running a good bit, but I want to expand it to all of you who spend a good amount of time outside in the elements. This isn't a discussion to should on anyone, but just to share the value we've found in going outside year round, braving the elements and the discomforts of our own bodies. What we gain, what we learn, it seems part of it's physical and so much of it is just psychological. So if you ride a bike or hike or swim or walk or whatever, I think you'll resonate with the discussion and possibly expand your joy getting outside. And for those of you who don't, maybe you'll be inspired too. My guest is Nicholas Thompson. He is well known as the CEO of The Atlantic, an American magazine founded in 1857, which earns top honors for magazines, general excellence at the National Magazine Awards in 2022 and 2023. I think it's one of the top magazines, period. Well, I've had multiple writers. They have some of the best writers on the planet. And I've had some of the writers for The Atlantic on this podcast, such as Arthur Brooks. We just recently, it's been a little while, a year maybe, we had him on the show with his book with Oprah Winfrey. And Charles Duhigg is another writer. We just had him on for the second time as well with his book, Super Communicators. They've both been here twice, and they are writers for The Atlantic, well known for that. Before joining The Atlantic, Nick was the editor-in-chief of Wired magazine and a contributor for CBS News. And Nick has long been a competitive runner most of his life. And in 2021, he actually set the American record for men 45 years plus in the 50K race. Well, Nick just came out with a new book. It's called The Running Ground: A Father, a Son, and the Simplest of Sports. And in it, Nick shares his relationship with running, with pushing himself, with overcoming a challenging father, the death then of his father, Nick's own bout with cancer, dealing with obsessions, and why in the hiring process at The Atlantic, he looks for people's ability to suffer for an end goal. Well, I took the opportunity to commiserate, admittedly, with Nick on the joys of our devotion to just getting outside pretty much every day, exerting ourselves, how the effort gives us a different experience of life. I think more so in today's culture than ever, where we tend to both stay inside more and avoid really any discomforts. And again, I think those of you who do such things will find this talk confirming and maybe more inspiring you to get out more. And for those of you who don't, I really do hope it gives you some more breadth to your thoughts about getting out, getting your heart rate up, and what the value could be to get outside. So coming up next, Nicholas Thompson, Nick, running, suffering, and loving the outdoors. Let's evolve ourselves today. Nick, feels like a world of books and messages. And my favorites these days are the ones that, not that offer a specific, here's an action item, or here is a how-to, or even a revelation. It's the ones that help foster my own contemplation. And I've been reading and musing over your book, and thank you for adding into my contemplation. I'm grateful to have you here.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I tried very hard to, not make it prescriptive, not make it didactic. Just say, this is what I went through. This is what I learned. This is what here are some stories.
Who did you have in mind as you were writing it? Because as I'm looking at it and thinking about your own stories and thinking about your own contemplations and thinking about your, writing about your father, and you're a father to boys, right? A couple boys. And did you have a muse, or was this just sharing the story and people take it how they want?
I didn't really have a muse. When you work in the magazine business through your life, as I have, maybe you kind of develop a muse, which is like a general reader who's curious and thoughtful. And, if you write something, we'll get from the beginning to the end. That was always one of the great lessons that I learned in magazine writing, is if you assume the person will get from the beginning to end, you write a better story. That a lot of them won't, but you write it as though they will. So if I had a muse, that was it.
I spend a lot of time in my work looking at worldview, people's worldview, how it affects them, how it attributes to their security or insecurity, is where I look at. Reading your book and hearing your stories, especially of running specifically. Some of the father aspects we may touch on, but the running,
Yeah.
I helped myself look at how it shaped my worldview,
Yeah.
how from a participatory standpoint and what we participate in. As I'm writing my own notes and thinking through your book, what we participate in shapes our worldview, but literally participate in is what I got to thinking
Mhm.
about as you were talking about the running exploits, whether it's racing or training or whatnot, but that you didn't just get exposed to, you actually participated, and how that becomes the filter that we see the world from. And you brought me back to the filter that I've experienced. It's similar to yours as not
Yeah.
just an athlete even, but an endurance athlete, and really even just a runner. It's just different. It's a different
Mhm.
worldview. That
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say that, like, you get deep into a sport, for me, it's been running, one of the books I loved was about surfing, right? You get deep into a sport, it shapes your habits of mind, it shapes your habits of body, it shapes the way you look at things. And it's partly why when I was writing the book, I wasn't like just thinking about runners, right? I was thinking about people who, of course, thinking about runners. Like I want runners to read the book and get faster and understand pain. I want spouses of runners to like understand their partners, but I also want to like shine a light on obsession, right? I want people who obsess about other things to get stuff from the book.
That having your spouse understand what you're doing, I thought a lot about just the relationships that you have. Again, worldview, relationships with life. And as you and I are driving around, and you had a mention in there of, the porta potties. I I have I have great I have great affection for porta potties. Whereas
Hmm.
my kids look at those and think, "Oh, it's just disgusting. Please, I'll
Yeah.
hold it. I'll wait. I'm not using." And I think, man, that's like salvation is a porta
Hmm.
potty. It's
That's very funny.
respite. It's and
Yeah.
I resonate a lot.
That's very funny. Yeah.
The Well, and in that going again, the relationship with weather, the relationship with the outdoors. You talked about, I think you said something to the effect of that I resonated with, going to cities and you get to know where you're at. You kind of get your bearings by going out and running. And to me, again, running, to talk about a muse, running seems to be the muse, but it is what I felt from you is it is expanded and so flavored your, again, worldview, your experience of your life. Fair?
Yeah. It definitely has. Like the city thing is interesting, right? It's a small example in the book. I'm glad you picked it up. It's just like a sentence. But, I go to a new city. I don't get on the treadmill, right? I don't go into the hotel and get on the treadmill. And I usually don't ask the concierge, like, what's the prettiest route? I just go and I'm like, okay, what's this city about? How can I get there? Right? Like, where are the ruins? Where's the capital? Where's the action? Where are the bars? And then I'll just go run, right? And I'll circle it and pass through and God willing, make my way back in one piece. And then you kind of know it a little bit better, right? You can experience a city in all kinds of ways, and there are better ways than running. Like you could take a day and go to a restaurant and have a guide, but there's something to be said for just going out 8 miles, take an hour, and you learn a lot.
Again, you just got me considering, yeah, how I view when I go to a city, and I live in a little mountain town, so cities are kind of new and new for me, anyways. To go there though, and to go out and run, same thing. Yeah, I don't. I always run outside. I don't ask where I'm going. I just take off,
Yeah.
and I think even envisioning myself as this little person in this big high rise that everybody's in, and yet I have a lay of the land. I think, I guess, I feel like it's centered. I center
Mhm.
myself with it. Does that
Mhm.
relate?
Definitely. I mean, I think that running is a way I center myself every day. It won't always be running, right? At a certain point in my life, maybe I'll have a knee injury and I'll switch to cycling, right? Maybe I'll be no longer able to run and I'll switch to walking. Maybe I'll be no longer be able to walk and I'll switch to swimming. But like something about outside athletic activity, it helps release the mind, open the mind. It helps you think through important things. It's a form of meditation. So for me, it's centering, meditation, release, relaxation, and in a way, a deepening. That's why I do it.
I've thought a lot lately about how again, worldview, but how I orient myself, what I orient myself. I may meditate to try to orient myself and level out my anxieties and whatnot, but this sense of orienting and again, yeah, I found myself thinking about that with running. Even like my family thinks that I am some sensei with direction, with my sense of
Uh-huh.
direction. And I think I just, you spend enough time out there running or riding or whatever, and if you don't figure that out, you're going to be lost constantly. I think it helps with that. And I would like to take it deeper and think, does it help with my sense of direction for my very life or life itself?
I think I think there's something interesting, very specifically about this sense of the direction, because why have we lost as a society so much of our sense of direction? Like specifically, I'm not talking metaphorically, but like literally, like the ability to get from A to B. It's because we rely on Waze and Google Maps, right? And so we've weakened the part of our brain that like remembers northeast, southwest, like remembers placeholders, remembers that okay, you go past the second fire hydrant and then you turn right. But when you run or you cycle, you're mostly untethered. Like maybe you have your Garmin, right? But you're mostly untethered and you have to remember, right? And you have to kind of force your mind to remember about the second fire hydrant. And so it strengthens your spatial awareness, which I think is a very useful skill. And I think it's a useful skill not just for getting to grocery store, but like much more than that.
I thank you. I do too. I'm curious then about I worry about we're gonna have Michael Easter on the show. He's got a new book on rucking, on walking with
Hmm.
weights. But his, comfort crisis. I've used that book as a source to consider what am I weakening myself with
Yeah,
by relying on. My gosh, I mean, we could go to. I know you have a great interest. It seems in AI,
I
and
do.
I've looked there and going, is that going to? Am I going to rely on it like I do my Garmin maps or whatever, and lose some of the strength that I currently have?
You are if you're not smart about it. I mean, this is one of the biggest unseen risks of AI is that you can weaken your spatial awareness, but what if you weaken your ability to like think creatively because you rely on AI? Like what you don't want, and you see this sometimes, and had this in conversations where a hard problem comes up and the person is like, "Oh, I'll just get back to ChatGPT and then I'll get back to you." When that's happened, you're in a bad spot, right? You should use ChatGPT. Use it all the time. Use Gemini, use Claude, right? Use all these tools. They're great. But as soon as you start to rely on them too much, you can lose the most important things about what happens in your mind, and then you're in trouble. Part of the reason, actually, I'm sometimes asked, like, why do so many people run marathons today? Like, why like 55,000 people are running the New York Marathon, right? In 1982, it was like 1,000. And part of the reason I think is it's a reaction to everybody realizing they're spending so much time tied to their devices. And you go out there and you run, enter a marathon, train for a marathon, you're out there for 4 hours, you're out there 4.5 hours, disconnected from your devices. And I think part of the pull is because people realize what's happening to them.
Yeah, it forces us to. It forces us. It blesses us to disconnect. And
Yeah.
I appreciate the idea of strengthening. I've been looking at for the first time in my life. I'm 54 and I've had 20/20 vision, and I'm for the first time realizing that sometimes I'll get away from the screen, and my eyes don't want to adjust as quickly, and I don't
Yeah.
like that. So I'm looking at what should I do. I just got some. I think Peter Attia talked about these Gunner blue light blocking glasses. So I got some of those. So I'm playing with those. But
Huh.
what I read something about, do I get something corrective, whatever, or do I work to strengthen my eyes? Somebody was talking about softening the gaze, not focusing in, but softening the gaze. And I consider that as I'm aging, that what am I going to do to strengthen, or am I going to start, well, like you said, relying like on AI?
Yeah.
It's not good or bad, but if we rely on it too much, we had a guy on talking about attachments recently, just our attachments to things. He says it's not that we don't attach to anything, but the severity of it is the concern. Sounds like
Yeah.
that's where you're lining up.
Totally. So it's the severity and like the deepness and the there's this process, it's called cognitive offloading, right? Where you take what you would normally do in your head and you offload it to a machine. And you want to do that, right? You want to offload like sort of dumb, simple things. You want to offload a lot of stuff. You got a big project, you're not getting it done. You want to offload the first step. Like once you start to offload important stuff. So one of the reasons, in my book, I didn't write a word with AI, not one, is there's ethical reasons, there's legal reasons, but also I don't ever want to lose the ability to write. I don't ever want to be in a situation where I'm like, I need to, God, if I'm not tethered to my machine, I won't be able to write. Like writing is core to who I am as a person.
Yeah, we used AI for some of the research, but yeah, I want to write. I'm with you on that. I want to write
Yeah.
what I write. Uh, I think I trust that the energy of that will come through. Honestly, the
Yeah.
spirit, not to get woo-woo, but the spirit of that will come through, and you'll feel it or not. I've been doing that with music. I live on Spotify, and sometimes I'll let the playlist go, and I'm starting to tune in now and realize that's not a real person. I can pick out the AI generated stuff. I'm trying to figure out how to keep it off of there. I want to believe, and I really do, that we can feel the difference.
Yeah, Spotify is like the cutting edge of the world of AI slop. Like Spotify with their ghost artists, right? Where like they do just that, right? You're in a playlist and they're like, you know what? We can AI generated some crap that sounds enough like jazz that you're not paying attention, and then we don't have to pay the artists. And that, like, they've been doing that for a while. That's like the world we're going to be in. You're going to go on social media. You're going to go, no idea what's real.
Well, which is why we run.
Yeah, it's true.
I really do. I feel like, talking about, you talked about running and riding. So my history was, I was a pro cyclist.
Yeah.
And when it ended, it wasn't really a bad thing. I don't really have a reason, but I was just done. And bikes went in the shed and collected dust for a decade. And I started running. It felt so primal. It still does. A technical trail run. You talked about a race that you do. I think it was Upper New York somewhere. Something that was real technical. You're jumping over stuff. You talked about, you ended up at the end with bloody elbows or knees or shoulders or whatnot. That's my normal run, and I adore it. I adore it. I feel like a human. I feel like an actual human, and the juxtaposition from that to being here with all of our tech. I come back to centering me. I don't know who I am. I think I don't know
for
who
you,
I am
it's
without
like
it.
that's a different ride, right? Because you did all these rides where like you're on like a racing bike and you're like measuring your power output and you've got everything like totally dialed in and everybody's like tracking everything and you have your team, right? It's a very different way to ride than like you're on your mountain bike and you're like cutting through the woods. And they're both awesome, but they're different.
Okay, thanks. I've been playing with that recently because I only mountain bike now. I don't own a road bike.
You don't even own a road bike now?
Don't own a road bike. I lent it to a friend and he got hit by a car. So, and I just let it go. And I'm up here in the mountains and the roads, there's not many paved roads, and what are full of SUVs pulling trailers with all their toys on it. So only mountain bike. But I appreciate that, Nick. Because I thought with a road bike, I mean, you're attached to the asphalt, your little skinny tires and 120 pounds of pressure and whatever, you're there. And yet mountain biking is kind of like skiing, snow skiing. It's kind of controlled sliding half the time. And the confidence is in your ability to control the chaos, I guess.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done some mountain biking enough to feel the comparison and enough to remember the like fear of going down pretty quickly and around a corner. And, a little bit like when you're getting on ski.
Even your average run around the city on pavement, as you talked about, is the majority, as opposed to being on the trail where the slipping and sliding and jumping over is part of it. Different mindset.
Yeah.
Different abilities. With the running, Nick, I found myself considering the relevance of expending yourself. Not even just running, because you can go jog. A lot of people go out and they do their jog. They don't really expend themselves. They're not really pushing a limit. And I'm at the point where I'm trying not to do that all the time, to not worry about the PR, to not look at my stats, after the run sometimes. I love that. It's a high. but also, just to enjoy it, or to enjoy it at a slower pace. But expending, you got me thinking about that, the joy, the rush. I feel like that chemical of going to kind of the edge of where you are. I don't know. I guess you could call it an addiction. I love it. It may be my favorite drug.
Yeah, it's probably mine too. I mean, I love I love it when you push yourself really hard, not past the line to the point where you're like convulsing afterwards and like shivering and all that crazy stuff that happens when you go to a race and you go 100%. But when you do a workout and you go 90, 95%, you feel so good afterwards. You feel so good during it.
Do you consider your love of running or your joy of running, your participation as it feels kind of pithy and minimizing to say therapy, but literally as a way to regulate yourself? 'Cause I'm aware that I struggle to function without it. I don't feel like it's an addiction necessarily, but it's part of my ethos. But I think it's bigger than that.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
medicating
an
some.
interesting question. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I don't go to therapy. I don't meditate and I don't do like, it's the only thing, right? Like, basically do three things, right? I work, play with my kids, and I run, you know? Um, and I work really hard and it's pretty intense and probably, I mean, maybe the playing with the kids gives you enough meditative release. And I think the run probably is a pretty useful form of therapy.
You mentioned the word a minute ago, obsessive, obsessing,
Yeah.
obsessive. Do you feel that again, I'm sensitive to the word addiction, for sure, but obsession. In reading your book, I am prone to consider you as somewhat of an obsessive person when it comes to work and the focus. And
Hmm.
it sounds like you've got a pretty wall to wall lifestyle. Um, does that come into play? Do you consider that? Are you at peace with?
I'm at peace with it. I mean, I think it's pretty interesting. Like when I run, there's a balance, right? I'm like, sometimes I'm running and I'm tracking my heart rate, I'm tracking my pace, I'm tracking my breath, and logging it Strava. I'm like trying to get a KO, right? Something like that. Or I'm like, I've got a specific thing that I've been sent. But sometimes I'm not thinking about any of that, right? Like yeah, I mean, I've turned my watch off. I've just like released myself. Like you have to have this balance between association and disassociation. You have to like go deep on things. You have to be able to release yourself. So um, I think it's both.
You talked about this in the book? Do you find more often than not, or where do you side on of runs where you are just trying to empty? You're trying to forget, not to forget, but an escape, a sense, even if we talk about meditation versus the times when, and I'm speaking for myself here, the times when I have something I'm chewing on and I
Yeah.
need to get out. I need to get out of here and I need to go out and chew. And I'm running and I'm not real aware of my surroundings. Sometimes I'm trying to be, but I vacillate there. Where do you fall on, I don't know, empty or focus, I guess?
I can't focus for that long, right? If I go out and I'm like, I'm going to run and all I'm going to think about, and I've got a big problem at work today. I'm trying to solve it. It's hard problem. I think I know the answer, but I might not. If I went for a run, I was like, I'm going to only think about this. By the time let's say, go run for an hour, I'm going to come back with probably a better idea. I'm definitely going to have thought about it. But if you're somehow like time the movie and probably like seven thinking about it, like a couple minutes thinking about the patient, whether they gave too much up at the second grade trade, right? Like there's like all this nonsense through as well. Um, but the nonsense is kind of important too for processing the important stuff.
Do you look at the time? We look at, you call it self care and whatnot, and things that people look at. I feel like as a luxury, like man, to take the time. Somebody could take the time. You do what a luxury you have, Nick. I I went through one period of I was a pro cyclist. We had a kid. The kid ended up in the hospital and I stopped. And for 2 years, I did nothing. And my wife finally bought a bike for me. And she didn't say,
Mhm.
just go ride. She said, go train. You're just a
Mhm.
better human when you're going to train. That helped. I helped myself with that to say, this isn't a luxury. This is what, to get the best out of me, I need to go do that. Do you look at that as this isn't a luxury, something you get to do? It's, you wouldn't be you. You wouldn't produce you. You wouldn't be the father you are, the worker you are, if you didn't do that. It's vital, is my point.
I think it's pretty important, and it's pretty important to the balance I have. I mean, I work really hard. It's the day before Thanksgiving. I'm in the office. I'm working hard. I'll be working hard all day. Um, and the running is a release. And like, I could probably like work without the running, but like, maybe I'd have to spend more time watching TV. I'd have to spend more downtime. Maybe I'd get sick more. Yeah, I'd like need to sleep in. I don't know. Like, I have a pretty disciplined life that lets me do a bunch of stuff. And I think the running,
I play with, if there's a 3 hour time period and I could work for 3 hours and yet I go run for an hour, I feel like my 2 hours working are
yeah,
that much better for it.
it's super. That's a really interesting question. And when you put it that way, it's specific. All right. So if you want to get the most done in 3 hours, so you're saying 2 hours work, 1 hour run, because it's not 1 hour work and 2 hours to run. And it's not 2 hours and 50 minutes of work and a 10-minute run. Like, there's like this balance in life that you have to get right. And you go from 3 hours to 8 hours to 24 hours to a lifetime. And you have to figure out the right way. And it's unlikely that the proper amount to run to get the most out of your life is the amount that you should run to be the fastest racer you can be, right? And so you're balancing priorities. It's unlikely that the proper amount to run is the amount that you should run to make you the absolute best father you can be. Because you shouldn't be running when like we're Thanksgiving. You shouldn't be running when the kid has to prep for a chemistry test. So you're weighing all of these things at all times. And like, you're not running as much as you could be running, but you're also, you're not missing the chemistry prep for the soccer game.
Talk about, I mentioned Michael Easter's Comfort Crisis.
Yeah.
Reading your book and the benefits, what I perceived the benefits of consistent engagement with discomfort.
Yeah.
But I'm going to butt it and ask you your thoughts. Discomfort. I mean, we do that. We get up in the morning or whenever we lace up. I usually run later in the day because it's really cold at 8,500 feet above sea level where I live. I'll go out, but I mean, you deal with today it's snowing, today it's raining, today it's hot, cold, whatever, the discomfort. Now, but we've been doing it so long, it's not as uncomfortable for us. It may even be kind of fun, but it's
Yeah.
still an aspect of discomfort. You still get back from the run. It was great. Literally can't feel your fingers. And
Yeah.
it doesn't feel good to me, but you had me considering again, just the benefit and the normalcy for us of discomfort, of obstacles, of the things that you encounter that I feel like as a humanity, man, we're just doing less of. I mean, in that sense, do you feel like this is an advocacy of folks, get out,
I
experience
totally
it.
believe that. I believe that doing hard things is really important. And I believe it teaches you habits of resilience. It teaches you habits of endurance, and it teaches you the ability to handle pain, discomfort, dysregulation in all kinds of fields, right? So I believe that going out and running a workout and pushing yourself creates a habit of mind that helps you push yourself in everything else in life. And that it also like trains you to be able to handle discomfort. It's not like because I run ultra marathons, I can like stand in negative 20-degree weather longer than somebody else can. But you learn about what to do with pain and what to do with hard. You have to, like, in order to do hard things, you have to do hard things.
We've got a lot of focus in the psychological world, self-help, on resilience, lots of books on resilience. And I appreciate that. If you get knocked down and whatever, to get back up, in essence. I've been focusing more these days on adaptability. if I am adaptive, kind of back to road cycling and mountain biking. Road cycling, you're just on the road doing that. Mountain biking, you got to adapt. That's kind of part of the thing. I want to continue to hone my adaptation skills so that I don't fall down and need resilience. Again, I'm not trying to diss resilience, but I'm wondering if we've had so much focus on resilience, like the expectation that you are going to fall. Can I be adaptive? And I found myself looking at that as I read your book, the frequency of familiarity with adaptation.
I completely agree. Like you need to like, you need to be able to get in hard situations and unknown situations. You need to get in stressful times. You need to just be able to kind of like have the habits of mind and have the sort of basic stoic discipline and have the ability to just navigate through whatever the impossible thing is. Like be able to keep yourself calm and handle the crisis, right? Okay, this bad thing has happened. I will now like figure out how to manage this bad thing, or this good thing has happened, and I'll figure out how not to get too high. Like here's one of the things that I think is important. It's a little bit in the book and it ties what you're saying. Life goes in waves, right? You have ups and you have downs, right? And you clearly had a really hard moment with your kid, right? And like sometimes you have a really hard moment with your parent, your moment with hard kids, with your kids. Maybe something terrible happens at work. Maybe it's your fault, maybe it's not your fault. And you learn in sports about these waves because you can see your body. You can see like I had a good race, I had a bad race, right? Like I lost because my tire went flat. I lost because I didn't train hard enough. I lost because I quit on myself, right? You learn about these waves and you learn about them in life. And once you understand that life has these waves, then it does two useful things. It prevents you from getting too low when you're at the trough because you know it's going to go back up, right? And particularly if you can like stay calm and stay focused, then like you'll get through that trough, right? And you have that bad race, you have faith, you'll get the next good race. Your tire won't go flat, you'll train harder or whatever. And then it also keeps you from getting at the top. Like you just did a good race. Well, things are going to go back down. And right, if you like are able to stay focused and not slack off, you'll do better there. And so if you have that awareness, I think you kind of get through things better.
Agreed. And having the awareness, you mentioned a minute ago, it's not the point that we can go out and stand in 20 degrees below zero longer than someone else. I've actually gotten a little tired of suffering to some degree. I guess I kind of proved it. I did an event a couple years ago where we did 40 miles in a day in the Grand Tetons. It was kind of a run through there. So 10,000 feet of elevation, and it took me 13 hours, and it's called the Sufferfest. A bunch of numbnuts that went out and called the Sufferfest. So 100 guys, or I don't know how many there were of us. And it was kind of cool, but I've kind of proven to myself I can suffer. And, sometimes I will, but I'm actually more interested in flow these days, being in that flow state, which may be at a high level and you're motoring and you're stressing, but sometimes
there's a way.
I feel like
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Like there's probably a way to do that 40 miles in the Grand Canyon, or maybe there's 30. Like what is the line where you can get into a really hard flow state before the suffer state, right? Like maybe it was 20 miles or maybe it was 40 miles at 6,000 feet. I don't know. Like there's somewhere. There also, like one of the most interesting things I learned that for some people, the suffering really matters in a way that I didn't get. I have a training partner. He's one of the guys I run these ultras with. I ran a 100K in the Finger Lakes with him a couple months ago. And he told me that the reason he does it is the suffering, but for a very specific reason, and that he had a really bad drug addiction in his 20s and early 30s. And he went into rehab and he went into withdrawal. And he suffered and he had felt this pain more than any other pain he felt in his life. And he wants to like run these races to remember the pain so that he's never tempted again. Right. And so like you can have a lot of different reasons for wanting to, and like for other people, I talked to some people when I was writing the book where they feel like it's almost like if you have pain in your life and you can create the pain like on a track or in the Tetons, it's almost like you can burn it off, right? Or you can cancel it, right? And so there's a way of like creating pain to counter pain. So there can be interesting reasons why it's important to suffer, but I'm with you that like, the flow state is the real thing that I'm after when I'm trying to run in the Tetons.
You said creating the pain. I have realized I like it when I'm creating the pain much more than someone else. When
Right.
we just did a bunch of guys, we just did a 3-day fast, and it's not really any big deal. But I think if you came along and said, "Hey, buddy, we're not going to let you eat, put you in a cell. You can't eat for 3 days." Well, then I'm going to starve. I'm going to
Yeah.
die. But if I do it, the self-inflicted pain. But I do find that it relates
Wait, were you doing
to,
that for nutritional reasons or for like just a test or like male bonding?
uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah. All we
All
just
the
I just play. I mean, it came from one of our guys is a functional medicine doc, and we're looking at the autophagy and some of the just the physical benefits. But really, it was a bunch of guys going, "Okay, let's make sure we got a grip on our stuff, on our
wow.
appetites." Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting.
Well, I do. I think I can. I think I've been playing with fasting a lot, almost using it like like a psychedelic. Man,
Hmm.
I've been having some great, I call them epiphanies on
Huh.
that fast. Like my favorite is a 36 hours. So like Sunday night, eat dinner, don't eat Monday, get up Tuesday morning and do a run. And
Mhm.
I've set a running and a mountain bike PR on some loops
Whoa.
in that
Really?
fasted state.
Huh. I mean, I think there's probably real physiological benefits because like doing that run on that loop in that fastest state probably like prepares your body for the end of an ultra. But I'm surprised you can do a PR. That's pretty cool.
I've been doing keto. I've been playing with stuff, but
Mhm.
we had Nick, some elite runners, Ethiopian guys who used to
Yeah.
come to our home. We had a home at 9,200 feet, and they'd come up there, spend the night. It was high altitude training. They'd spend the night, get up the next morning, do a 20-mile run, and then they would go home to get oxygen back at home. It was Colorado Springs, so 6,500 feet, but a lot lower, and then
Yeah.
do another different type of workout. And they had this program, but my point being that they would eat dinner with us. They'd get up the next morning, not real early, have some of their tea. It was some kind of an African tea, I don't know, with a little cream. And then they'd go run and do their 20 miles, no food, no whatever. And I mean, that we have such conceptions about how much we need to eat, especially here in America. And,
Yeah.
I watch these guys and they're like, man, we grew up, half the time you go run and we haven't eaten in a couple of days. It's not a big deal. I want
Yeah.
to be that efficient.
Yeah. That's interesting. Um, I mean, there's a lot we can learn from those guys living at altitude, eating the diets, the pure, the simple, the different life. You look at Elliot Kipchoge and like he's got this like Zen state as a person. And how much did that come from where he grew up in Kenya? I don't know enough about his life, but he's at a different psychological level than most of us.
Okay, psychological level. Tell me about that with you. You mentioned meditation, and I looked at as I read your book, my own filter. I'm feeling. I mean, the running, the going out and expending myself, being a flow. I got to admit, it's kind of a sacred ritual
Yeah.
to me. Call it spiritual, whatnot. How does that played into your own relationship with running? Just that
Oh, I
aspect,
think
call it
I
spiritual.
think it's really important. I think it's a very spiritual relationship. I think that sometimes I remember with my child, like, why do you run? "Oh, I run to get closer to God. And it's kind of like where the title of the book comes from, right? And the like title of the book comes from this long quote from Maximus of Tyr that was rendered into print by Ben Shawn, where he's like, look, we can't really describe God. We can't really name him. And so what we do is we name him the things in our lives that are beautiful. And like we create these maps between the things in life that we find beautiful and the things that give us release, and we map it to God. And through that, we understand God, we understand religion. I don't care what you use, whether it's a well designed chair, piece of music, or a running ground. This is line, running ground meaning a Greek track. That's where the title comes from. And so, it's not a replacement for Christianity, Buddhism, or whatever your religion is, but I think it's a way to deepen your spiritual practice and understanding.
I would say it expands everything.
Yeah.
Expands everything for me. Do you look at, you have I'm going to call it a big job, big position, demanding, a lot of things going on. Uh, I find sometimes I consider, am I heading out the door because it's something I can count on for sure. It's something I
Mm-hmm.
do feel an aspect. I don't like the word control, but for lack of better terms, it's something that I can just, it's solid, it's real, I can control it. Well,
Yeah.
to the running ground, I feel I'm going to ground myself. So much I
Yeah.
can't control, but here I can. Does that relate?
100%. Right. And it's part of why I call it the simplest of sports, right? Because you can do it by yourself, right? And you really can do it any day you want to do it, whether you're at 9,000 feet, you're at zero, whether it's 10 below or 105, right? And you don't need a racket. You don't need someone else to do it. You don't need a court. You don't need a ref, right? You can just go and do it, and then you can measure yourself. And, that simplicity allows you to have control, and it allows you to see how it's changing you for good or for ill. And so I love to go out in the morning and run. And then, like, I've done that, right? It sets me up for a disciplined day. It sets me up for a better day at the end of the day. Well, what did I accomplish? Well, at least I went for a run, right? I did a bunch of other stuff too, but I did also go for a run. And I think it's very, very helpful.
The simplicity spoke to me, Nick. I think
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons where I was able to lay down the bike, and
Yeah.
and especially if it's warm, it's a pair of shorts and a pair of shoes. That's it.
Yeah.
I still adore that. I still like that. I love mountain biking, but that aspect, and that you can do it anywhere. I
Yeah.
was
And mountain
good.
biking, that sounds awesome. Biking's awesome, but it creates all these external variables that aren't you, right? Like, maybe you have to stop your ride because, your seat broke or your brakes broke, right? And that's not you, right? You might have to stop a run because you pulled your hamstring, but that's you, right? And it's like something that you can theoretically control and you can modify and you can adapt. And it's nice to just have it all be your person.
Okay, I'm going to veer off the depth here and just ask
Weird.
a couple curiosity questions.
Totally,
Um,
totally.
did you ever get into the Born to Run book?
Of course.
And did you adjust anything off that? What have you? I asked because I totally changed. It was a Father's Day. I ran 2 hours. It was great, but my back hurt, my hips hurt, and then I get this book. Somebody said, "I got to check this out." And of course, I love the book. It was such an entertaining read, but
Yeah.
it was also super convicting. So I changed to the minimalist running, injured myself, of course, and then had to recover from that. But now today, I do run almost 95% of the time just in minimalist shoes. Did it change how you run?
I mean,
What you run?
the book's awesome. The characters are amazing, right? Like, I use them to model like childhood stories that I told my kids. Like, it created this like mix of like half man, half antelope things we called flambas that would run in the Catskills, right? That book came out like right about when my first kid was born. The book's awesome. I think the shoe stuff's totally wrong. I mean, I think it's good. Oh yeah. I mean, like, we've kind of learned with super shoes. The whole premise was that running shoes don't make you faster. It's all marketing. That's just like not true, right? Like, you know, go wear a regular pair of shoes, go run super shoes, go run a mile. It'll be like a 10-second difference, right? It just is. Um, I do think minimalist running is one of the things that I believe is that you want to shift the sort of the impact on your body, right? So sometimes wear thick shoes, no shoes, sometimes they're, carbon shoes, right? And I do think that barefoot running plays a role. I try to run like a mile a week barefoot, find like a golf course or a track or like a soccer field inside a track. But in general, the shift that America went through after the run came out, they all like stopped wearing running shoes. It like made everybody feel healthy for 3 months because it shifted the impact. But then we all got hurt, right? Like happened to you. Um, and that's why there's not a lot of people out there like barefoot running anymore. Like, it's a good way to run. It's true. The marketing has been nonsense over the years, but you wear a good shoe, you can go faster than a bad shoe.
Well, and I'm not running as long as you are. My long runs are 6 miles or so, and it's on a trail. I do dig the minimalist stuff. I love feeling it. I love the
Oh, it
feel
feels
of it.
great, right? It's like it's probably why I try to run a little bit of every week barefoot, right? Because it connects you, right? Like, sole of your foot hits the ground, the top of your head is like towards the sky. Like, it's a beautiful place to be. It just, you won't go as fast and you might get hurt. So you have to manage it. But it also depends on your body type and your surface. Like, for some people, some subset of people, you should wear the Vomero, right? Like the heel this big. Like, Some people, depending on their body, you should go minimalist.
Well, I was a over heel striker too. So yeah,
Yeah.
I had some really bad. Now when I did the 40 miles and the Grand Tetons, I did do I can't remember what the brand is. It Ultra. It was a
Good.
flat shoe, but real cushy. I think. Okay.
Yeah.
The other question then was, and I mentioned this with Michael Easter, his an entire book on walking with weights. And so
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends doing it. I haven't really paid attention to it. Now I'm playing with it. Thoughts?
I think it's probably great. Right. I mean, I haven't done, I mean, I've done backpacking where you're like out for a few days with heavy weights. I think it's great. I think it adds different force. It adds different, I think it, you know, look how strong those guys who did in the Marines, right? There's a reason why they make it part of Bowie, or Ranger
Well,
training.
if you enjoyed Born to Run, his new book, it hadn't come out yet, but I think it's called Walking with Weights.
Good
Very
title.
entertaining, of course,
Yeah.
and pretty convicting, kind of like the Born to
Yeah.
Run was.
Nice.
Um,
Nice.
with this talking about running and the benefits and whatnot, how have you, and discomfort and all the benefits that we're talking about, how have you addressed that as a father with your kids?
It's a good question. I talk to them a lot about how we make choices, where there are a lot of things like we live in Brooklyn at a time where, and we're going to live in a historical moment that people are going to look back on and laugh, where like, everybody gets a medal, right? And like everybody gets an A, and, you don't track kids, and you set up to sort of like you like sort of just put cushions around everybody in every way, so nothing bad can happen. And like, that's the way that sort of the infrastructure is set. Try to get our kids out of it, right? Um, you know, they're in a Brooklyn school that's like that. It's advantages, good things come out of it. So like the older kid goes to an school, magnet school, where everybody just like, none of that exists. It's all just like in this grind to do better, which is awesome. I'm right. He's learned incredible. Two younger boys, hyper intense soccer team. The older guy, and they play on big teams. They play with adults in the Caribbean. They play like all over the place with these super intense games, these super intense coaches where you don't get playing time because everybody gets playing time and everybody gets, no, you get playing time, you're better. And so you learn, right? And if you like should go play, you get benched. If you like do badly, you get benched, right? And you learn and you meet people from different cultures and different worlds, and it's awesome. And we made very specific choices to put them in this like cutthroat program in parts so they would learn these lessons.
You mentioned the participation award. Um, yeah, I had to mitigate that as a father. And when the kid does the first cross country race and comes in at like 33 minutes, I'm like, but did you crawl? Did you actually run? Did one foot leave the ground ever? Uh, I don't see, yeah, I don't see it happening. And I'm assuming you're seeing that. I meant to ask this earlier, that you're seeing in your position. I don't have a ton of employees. I don't have a big company. You are in the minutia of life and seeing and working alongside so many people. I'm assuming got to see, and one of the reasons maybe you wrote the book, the lack of, I'm going to call it fortitude. And we talked about resilience, but again, adaptability, we could put 100 terms into it. But is there, and I don't want to just diss on the current culture, but I am seeing it. My kids talk about seeing it. And yeah, I'm imagining.
Yeah. First, I'm going to tell you a story about my kid because it's like the inverse. So I ran the New York Marathon a couple of weeks ago, and like I've begun the training cycle. I was like, I'm going to run 2:30. And things didn't go perfectly, but like a couple weeks out, I'm like, I'm going to run 2:35. And I talked to my son, who's 15. He's like, 2:35 is good. That's not bad. You can run 2:35. That's good. And then the race comes up, and I'm like, I'm sick. I got some respiratory infection, and it's just a disaster, right? I run 3:06, like worst marathon in 20 years. And I come home, and like most of my friends, like know that they're saying 2:35 and 3:06. They don't care, right? You're getting all these text messages. Great job, Nick. Like, beautiful out there. 3:06, that's so good, right? Like, almost got there. Yeah, like, great job, Nick. Everything's positive. I get home. House is empty because my wife's out with one kid. The other kid's maybe working. Her middle kid comes home from soccer game. Dad, what was that? I was like, well, it's like a tough. It's like, do not post that on chat. not tell anybody you ran. Enter another one immediately and bury that garbage. I was like, all right. Thank you, my son, David Goggins. Um,
I resonate.
I mean,
You
then, okay, now, back to your question. Yeah, like the whole goal here is to like bring in people who want to work all the time and who want to win, right? And who like are willing to take risks and like want to push forward and don't need to have their hand held and don't need to work at home every day and don't need to like have an hour long lunch break and don't need to take their birthdays off, right? The goal is to have like people who have like resilience and drive. And you got to find those folks. If you don't find those folks, you're cooked.
okay? Tactical question on that. How many employees ish do you have?
About 300 people at the Atlantic and probably half are on the business side, half on the outside.
So how do you look for that in the hiring process?
Well, you ask people, you ask references, and you try you try to understand I mean, I think one of the proxies is like, do you like to work at the office or do you like to work at home? And if somebody likes to work at home, maybe it's because they need quiet space but it's a pretty good proxy for whether they're like their level of drive, right? And their level of like wanting to come in and win. And the level of how much me time do you need versus how much time are you willing to like focus on winning? And you try to figure out like homework is not the only proxy, of course. And maybe one of the very most efficient employees I worked with at Wired worked at home because he lived in Alabama, right? But you try to figure out like what are the proxies for actually wanting to work, do well, succeed, like keep this place going, like get this place to the next level. But it's hard, and we've made some hiring mistakes, but we've also hired some awesome ones.
My work that I'm doing, we're putting a lot of focus and research on agency, called personal agency, but really looking at inner agency. We're really looking not just the agency to, I'm saying this in reference to you, you're going to come and you're going to work hard. There is the personal agency of, okay, yeah, I'm going to, pull my boots up by the straps and make it happen and do that. We're differentiating it though between really a great example that everyone seems to relate to is Viktor Frankl. He
Mm-hmm.
didn't have the ability to influence his external world at all, but the inner agency he had was seemed second to none. And we're really
Yeah.
looking at that. Not only the ability to work, but back to kind of the resilience, the adaptability, I'm going to say an inner strength. How do you differentiate that? Do you see a
How do I
difference?
find that in a person, or how do you like?
Kind of what are you seeing? What are you seeing in regards to that? Because it's one thing just to come in and bust your butt and be the first one there and the last one there, but I'm not always seeing that equates to what we're looking for.
No, it doesn't. And you can do work theater and productivity theater, and like you can create work slop, and you can waste time. You know, you got to do two things. You got to find people who have that as best you can. You got to identify it from their previous habits. You got a little bit of a shot in the interview. You got a little bit of a shot as you go through the resume. You got a little bit of a shot as like you go through the whole hiring process. And then when you get in, you got culture that cultivates that, inculcates that, and shows that. And then you got to train people. You got to identify, right, this person has the chance to be like a really good leader and has the drive and has the ambition. Okay, now I'm going to try to like help mentor them. I'm going to help show them how they can do better. I'm going to try to like open up these doors and opportunities to them. And this person just does. I will give them a shot. Won't then like you'll either try to move them out or yeah, like the response. So then you move things to thrive. Um, but it's this mix. Hire the right people, help the right culture, move the right folks out. But each of those steps is super hard. And in part because the stuff you say is like it's hard to discern and hard to define and like, hard to figure out who has like like there are proxies to it that are correct. So you can be misled. And and I've like I don't know, I remember the New Yorker when I worked there, I worked there for 6 years, 2010 to 2016, really had that. I had that culture in a way that I've always admired. And David Remnick would say, like, Nick, you need to like you can't you thought my greatest weakness was like accepting kind of mediocrity. And he would like really push me. You can't like, if you like the person, you have to be much tougher. It was an interesting lesson, something I learned from.
Do you take that just from a personal standpoint as well on, do you still look at being tough with yourself?
Well, so I think that with myself, I think that like there's a really good lesson. I think it's Adam Grant. And he's like, you take everything in your life, right? You have lots of things to do in your life and lots of things you need to accomplish. And some of them you need to do really well. And some of them you need to do pretty well. Some of them you need to get through and some you need to ignore, right? Because if you take everything on my to-do list, like I look at like the to-do list and all the emails and all the inputs and all the questions and all the like requests, I couldn't possibly do them. Couldn't, right? And let's say I decide I'm going to do half of them. Well, I could do half of them. Like if I do them all, I could get like 6 out of 10 on all of them. So what you got to do is you got to figure out what are the things you can get 10 out of 10 on, what are the things you can get 9 out of 10 on, what are the things you're just going to like push along. And so I try to like not be hard on myself for like falling short on stuff, but to like, so the book, right? Book better be 10 out of 10, right? So like it's going out there, it's got my name on it, it's about my life, or I need to feel that way, right? And some people think it's 10 out of 10. Some people think it's 2 out of 10, but whatever. I feel great. I think it's the best thing I've ever written. I feel really proud of it. And like, I wasn't going to put it into the world until I felt that way. Whereas there's other stuff where it's okay. Like just do the best you can and move on. So I am a little tough on myself if I've been like inefficient at allocating time, attention, and effort. But I'm also well aware that some things matter and some things don't.
Some things, there's your next book title. Some things
Yeah.
matter. Some things don't. I'll end here. I did think about how much of your kids, back to the muse though. But I mean, this is a book. It's a memoir style book. I mean, this is something that your dad writes this. It kind of matters. If it doesn't right now, because you're a teen and it may not be the focus, it's going to at some point. My dad passed away last year and he's written a lot of books, and the gravity of what he wrote increased for all of us, for his kids and whatnot. Did you have that thought in mind that this is an evergreen message that's part of your kid's life and going to impact them?
Totally. I mean, in fact, the book in some ways came about because there are a lot of origins for the book, but one of the origins was after my father died 8 years ago. I was on a plane back. He lived in the Philippines, and I was writing a letter to my kids about what he meant to me because I didn't know him, and he lived far away and they didn't understand him and they didn't even really know he existed, right? My mother married this amazing man and he's their grandfather, right? And so I was writing back and I was writing a letter to them like, this guy actually meant a lot to me, both as a man who set a positive example, who introduced me to these wonderful things, and as a man who did all kinds of terrible things that I don't want to repeat. And I started writing that letter to him, and then I took the whole flight. It was 5,000 or 6,000 words, crying at the end. And so like this book was definitely, and then that kind of, a lot of that letter, I haven't revisited in a while, but a lot of that is like in the book. So I do want them to pick this up in 10 or 15 years, and I do want them to remember, I'm 50. I'm not going to be a fast runner. I'm not going to be strong for that much longer. I want them to remember this, watching me run, and I was good. They went and watched me run. And one of them watched me run when I got 229 marathon. They haven't watched the ultra. They haven't watched the crazy stuff, but they've all seen me run like 230 marathons. Like it's a cool memory that they're going to have. I do have a deal with my middle son, the guy, the David Goggins guy, that we're going to try to run a marathon in a cumulative time of less than 6 hours when he's 18, 54. Mm-hmm. And the other day after my 306, the other thing he said, he's, man, now I'm going to have to carry.
Okay. I am going to ask one more question on that, Nick. You said 54. I am 54. So I've been a lifetime, athlete and often at the elite levels, but looking at, I can't keep setting PRs. I mean, it's physically impossible. And just considering my own peacemaking with that, with this, I'm going to be an athlete forever. It's just part of
Yeah,
who I am. It's part of who I want to be. But I guess I can keep setting age bracket, records or whatnot, or for myself, PRs. But at some point, you can't just always keep getting better. And
you can't.
I don't have a definitive line on that one. I'm just kind of holding it and pondering. Thoughts?
Yeah. No, you just have to let it go. I mean, I haven't done a great job of that, right? I've started like running new distances and trying to set PRs, and like you can do that for a while. Right? You can go and like, okay, I used to run marathons, now I run 50Ks, now I run 50 milers, now I run 100Ks, next I'll run 100 milers. You can let that go, and then you can just be like, okay, well now I'm going to try to just run 100 miles through the mountains. Okay, well I'm going to try to win my 60 to 65 age group. And at some point, you have to let all that go and just run for the spiritual release. I'm not there yet, but I'll be there eventually.
I'm tapping into it. I'll let you know
Yeah.
I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah, we'll talk again in like 2 years when I'm there.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Hey, thank you. Thanks for writing
Thank
the
you, Tim. It
book.
was so much fun to talk. I love chatting.
I will, and I just it it helped my contemplation and
That's great.
considering, and I think it will add to my enjoyment of running, honestly. So
Amazing.
thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing the heart in it and the message, and thanks for the time today.
All right, amazing. When I'm out in Colorado Springs, I hope you'll take me out on a mountain bike.
Fair enough.
That'd
Deal.
be awesome. Okay, cool. All right, thanks so much. Cheers. Cheers.
Thanks for joining us here. That again is Nicholas Thompson, and the book is called The Running Ground: A Father, a Son, and the Simplest of Sports. Till next time, here is to the evolving you.
Yeah.